The new millennium hasn't brought us flying cars or meals in pill form or the nerve pinch or mind meld or robot wives or any of the things that dorks like me pined for back in the dark days of 1987. But it has brought us one thing, an honest-to-gosh nerd renaissance. Things here in C21 are pretty good for us nerd babies. We've had a whole new batch of Star Wars movies, we had Lord of the Rings, which certainly delivered the goods, and we are smack dab in the middle of a seemingly endless parade of superhero movies done right for the first time in film history. When I was a kid, all you basically had was the first few Superman movies and Tim Burton's Batman movie. There were also rumors of a Captain America movie so bad that the government shot the director and made his family pay for the bullet. But that's about it. Just a handful of established mainstream characters in films with limited special effects. It's kind of hard to take these guys seriously when you can see the puppet strings, am I right?
Hell yeah!
But now, they're in the middle of shooting a Green Freakin' Lantern movie starring Ryan Reynolds. And I heard that his outfit, the clothes he wears, are gonna be entirely CG. How crazy is that?
That's crazy.
This Friday, April 16th, 2010, sees the release of Kick-Ass, yet another comic book turned into a big deal, high-profile feature film. And not only does it look like it's gonna be totally awesome, it represents a very significant cultural shift. Now that the mainstream appeal for this genre has been established, it seems that for the first time ever, superhero stories can skip over the comic book medium completely and go straight to movies. I mean, the pump has already been primed with movies like Spider-Man and Batman Begins and Iron Man and Watchmen, that Hollywood is hungry for original superhero content no matter where it comes from, as long as it gets the butts in the seats. Kick-Ass is a comic book written by Scottish writer Mark Millar, who has made a reputation for himself over the last few years for crafting inventive narratives that twist around genre conventions into new story possibilities. He helped breathe new life into the X-Men with Ultimate X-Men. He wrote the incredible Superman Red Sun that imagined a world in which Superman's ship crashes in Soviet Russia as opposed to rural Kansas. And he blatantly set out to tell a story from the villain's point of view, which isn't done very often. That comic book was adapted into Wanted, which came out 2 years ago and starred Angelina Jolie, I don't know if you remember. Well, the concept for Kick-Ass is equally fresh and endearing, and it's perfect source material for an audience who now, more than ever, is willing to take spandex-clad superheroes a little more seriously. Kick-Ass basically tells the story of Dave Lazuski, a regular high school comic book nerd who wonders why no one in the real world has ever tried to put on a costume and fight crime, which is a question that every nerd throughout history has asked themselves at one point or another. So Dave starts working out and he makes a costume and he calls himself Kick-Ass, but on the first night of his crime fighting career, he gets his ass handed to him just like in the real world. It's supposed to be a brutally realistic take on the mechanics of crime fighting in a world without superpowers or cheesy supervillains. These are regular people who aren't smart like Bruce Wayne or super rich or super drunk like Tony Stark. Normal people like you and me fighting drug dealers and muggers. And this is very much an idea that could only happen now. It could only work in 2010, following the 10-year cultural superhero saturation we've seen in feature films. But here's the funny part. The right to adapt Kick-Ass theatrically was sold before the first issue of the comic even hit the stands. Mark Millar was at some party and he happened to be talking to Matthew Vaughn, director of this film, about this idea for a comic book he had. Vaughn loved the idea and said, basically, you write the comic book, I'll make the movie, more or less. By all accounts, it seems that the script for the film and the script for the comic were written simultaneously, allowing the story for both to evolve together, which I don't think really has happened before. And you've got to wonder if, technically speaking, the film is actually an adaptation of the comic or vice versa.
We'll never know.
One thing's for sure, Kick-Ass does seem like it's going to be good. A lot of early reports are saying that the film is indeed Kick-Ass. This was verified when the film premiered at last December's Button-Umathon, which is Ain't It Cool News' annual 24-hour geek orgy that happens in Austin, Texas. Standing ovation for Kick-Ass. But really, what's not to like? Nic Cage as a faux Batman, an 11-year-old who swears all the time and goes on a murder spree, McLovin thrown in for good measure, and an honest-to-gosh effort on the part of the filmmakers to make these characters seem real and flawed, putting on costumes and going out beating up criminals.
I'm kick-ass.
In the real world. If you've been enjoying the recent batch of superhero films that have come out of Hollywood, then chances are you've got nothing to lose if you go and see Kick-Ass. Just don't bring your kids. Not a kids movie.